Now, joining us for more on this from Cairo is Mr. Hany El Gamal, who is a researcher and in regional and international affairs. Welcome to the program. So, following UNRWA's latest report highlighting this deepening catastrophe in Gaza, are there any diplomatic pathways that remain available to halt the escalation before more lives are lost?
تحياتي لحضرتك وتحياتي للسادة المتابعين.
To the viewers, of course, now we are facing a defining point in the Arab-Israeli conflict because Israel violated three ways to displace the Palestinian population by trying to forcibly displace the population, and then voluntarily, and then the silent displacement that they are carrying out right now by intensifying the halt on the food and pharmaceutical supplies into Gaza. What Israel has been doing since the return and the resumption of the military operations, once again, stresses this only meaning because they have not only waged wide-range military operations against the defenseless, but they carried out and established different buffers in Gaza. They isolated Gaza from Rafah, which gives Israel the power to control what gets in and what gets out of Gaza. And here causes the Israeli resistance to entering any humanitarian aid through Rafah, crossing over Karm Salem, which and now we witness the lack of any food supplies, and even the kitchens that provided the only meal to the Palestinian population is now forbidden, which is, and Israel is practicing the coordinated systematic starvation to empty and evacuate this area, and they are destroying any kind of infrastructure there. Israel is using this set time frame before the Trump's visit to the region during this month, and therefore they are expanding the military operation and giving some sort of the buffer zone in the southern suburbs of Gaza to control the humanitarian aid access. The Palestinians are now under inside camps, and the only way to receive any kind of aid will be through the Israeli troops, and therefore Israeli is succeeding to displace them. What has been expressed by the UNRWA and other humanitarian institutions working in Gaza, they stress, as stated by the ICJ today, that is a genocide crime being committed, and Israel shall be held accountable for it, and some international resolutions will be issued against Israel as an occupying state, and it's also against the Rome Statute. Also, it is in violation of the Geneva Agreement, which grants the occupying state certain duties and obligations that they should follow, all of which affirm that Israel is going forward with the displacement scheme, and all the leaks stating that Israel is rejecting any kind of a truce, either temporary or long term, which were proposed by the mediators during the past few hours. And there is a cabinet meeting today to go forward with the escalation of the military operation, which all affirm that Israel and the United States are violating all the international regulations and norms, and what we have seen of the international humanitarian law is now meaningless. before the crimes committed by the occupation, and any attempt to hold Netanyahu and Gallant accountable is failing, and that's why the diplomatic efforts in this regard will never succeed except in one case, which is a real pressure from the US side. Let's use the current timing and the historic visit to be paid by Trump to the region to have a very critical vision of the US stance and the pressure to be applied on Israel to have a balanced stance, because uh, the US turned from a peace-sponsoring countries to a party to the conflict when the US president talked about the Middle East Riviera in Gaza. And there are efforts being exerted by Cairo and other Arab states, and lately by the European Union states, and let's agree that the three-party meeting between Macron and President Sisi and King Abdullah with their diplomacy succeeded somehow to influence the closed rooms in the United States to affect the US stance, which was witnessed by the statements of Trump following his meeting with Netanyahu, which was described by the Israeli media that it was not a very fruitful visit, and it was somehow insulting to the Israeli Prime Minister. And I think and that will be very critical for either a new positioning to the Israeli troops in Gaza before Trump's visit, or there will be a wide range military operation with a demographic shift that will be followed of ignition inside Israel, inside Palestine.
Okay, well, we're just out of time, but thank you very much. We have a very comprehensive answer there from you, and you touched on some very, very important details, so we thank you a lot for joining us here on the program, Mr. Hany El Gamal, a researcher in regional and international affairs. Thank you very much for being here with us on Q News.